I don't know how to describe it other than like a demon type of sound.
But it's silhouetted, hulking, every bit of 5.5 feet wide, 13 to 14 foot tall, pitch black.
The one thing that ran through my mind when I had this encounter was I don't have a big enough gun.
Your host, two-time witness and field researcher for more than 40 years, William Jevning. Welcome to Creek Devil.
Welcome to Campfire Talk, everyone. This is where we sit around the fire, put our feet up with a cold drink, and let the conversation flow. Tom, I know you have, you wanted to start talking about a guest that we're going to have next Saturday, and there's a connection with Forrest.
There is, and I'm going to, just want to, first off, I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. If you made it for the first 10 seconds, here you are. We're glad to have you. Welcome aboard. And we have a really interesting show today, and next week's going to be absolutely fascinating. But if you like this show and you want to help us out, let us know. Just click the like button and just smash it real hard. And if you haven't subscribed already, click the subscribe button. And if you really want to go the extra mile, you can. You can do it for as little as $1 a month. Click on the Patreon link. It's in the YouTube description, and become a member of Creek Devil. And with that said, Will, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Well, go ahead and you've talked to this guy, Brett. So tell us, you know, what he told you and how it connects to Forrest.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to have a gentleman on next week. His name's Brett, and he has his own YouTube channel. It's just called Desert Sasquatch. And it's real fascinating, if nothing else. It's absolutely stunning vistas of the high desert in the state that he lives in. And I'll leave that up to him if he wants to disclose what state he's in. But he's up at about a 7,000 foot elevation, and everywhere they have, now he calls them cedars, and Forrest calls them cedars, but they're actually juniper. We call them juniper trees out here. Here's what he had, and this caught my attention. Huge circles that have been stomped out or worn or weathered out or whatever you want to call it, around not one, not two, but 10 areas, I believe is what he said, of these junipers. And it's these creatures that have made these circles. And Forrest, you had that on your property. And now that was the first time I'd heard about this, was when you told us about it and you sent us pictures. But tell us a little bit, give us some background on how close it was to your house, and you know, what do they look like and all that kind of stuff.
Well, they were perfect circles. In fact, I was amazed at how perfect they were around, and they were two circles that were joined together. They actually make a perfect figure 8. And then on one of them, the one on the north side, had a path leading off into the woods down towards the stock tank from there. And then on the one that the one that points south has another path leading off, going off through the cedar trees to the south there, and looks like we kind of followed it as best we could through there, and it goes. It looks like they were going across the fence and then across the road to that Post Oak Farms over there, or Post Oak Ranch, and so. I mean, they're perfect circles underneath the cedar trees. And they were, I'm going to say, maybe 8 feet behind the dog kennel where I used to have my dog Cagney. And we've since moved him because, I mean, all the time he was barking. He barked. I mean, it was like the poor dog. I'm surprised he had a bark left. I mean, he should have been suffering from laryngitis because he just barked 24/7. And once we've moved him, he only barks when he actually sees stuff now. So, I mean, it's just the change in the dog is amazing. Because I think I told you he had actually dug a hole, a den for himself in the kennel. And I mean, he had a doghouse out there, but he wouldn't use it. The doghouse was against the back fence, and that was it was backed up to the fence that was the back up to the those circles back there. So he had actually come to the front of the dog pen. And I mean, he had like a 16 by 12 foot run out there. So it was quite large. And he had dug a hole and a burrow down into the ground and was probably about 3 feet under the ground. So, and that was altogether probably, I'd say maybe 30 feet from the house altogether, those circles. So, you know, man, I don't know what to say on that one.
Well, here's the thing, Forrest. Now, there's some new information, and you may have shared it when you first told us about this, but I didn't realize. Now, I thought it was just 2 circles, and they'd sort of formed a figure 8, but I didn't realize that there was actually a trail leading out from the circles, going across to the place across the street that we know good and well that the creatures are over there.
Oh, yeah.
Or something that sounds like the weirdest coyotes we've ever heard. And I heard them.
Well, you heard them.
I heard them, yes. Very strange coyote. So tell us a little bit about that. So there was actually a trail going from the circles through your property?
Yes, I do think that I mentioned that. I may not have, emphasized the trails leading off of them, but you could see that, something had been out there, and the one trail on the north side leads off to the stock tank, kind of to the northwest there, and that was actually where Jessica and I had kind of followed it over there, and you could see where something had actually had trampled down all the grass and the foliage underneath these. I've got some really huge oak trees that are around that tank, and something had been sleeping in there. And they were way too big. They don't have cows over on that property. That's actually across the fence. I have a dry weather creek that goes into that stock tank, and when it's really wet like it is now, it actually backs up onto my property. And but that stock tank is actually on my neighbor's property, and so we went over there and we looked, and you could actually see where something had been laying down in there. Now, that's not to say that it might not have been deer, but we didn't see any deer tracks on that trail at all. I mean, and this trail was like about 3 feet wide. Well, you've seen how wide the trail is from the circles. I mean, it's a good 3 feet wide. I mean, it's just beat down. And I didn't have anything that was over there. And I mean, like I said, the guy that was doing my fence around the yard, I put up a 6 foot high fence around my yard, and that he was over there, and he was the one that brought it to my attention. He said, "You need to come look at this." He said, "I don't know what this." He didn't have any idea what it was. So we all, Sherry and me and this guy Cody, we all went over there. We're standing there looking at it like, well, this is just weird. So. But the path goes down to the like I say, it comes off the north side of that figure 8, and it goes over to the stock tank, and you can see where something's been laying down in the under those oak trees and such over there. And then it was going off to the south, and that part actually kind of headed southeast off the south side of that figure 8. And it went through my cedar trees and across my property. And then you could see where it just got to the fence. And then they would have gone across the road to Post Oak Farms. And, yeah, I've heard whoops over there. I had been out one morning. I had to drive into Austin and take some cats to the Humane Society to be spayed and neutered. And I was standing out there, and I distinctly heard whoops coming from across the road there. So it was.
And when did you hear those whoops?
Oh gosh, that's been 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay. So here's a question I have. Two things that you said really caught my attention. Number one was the width of that path. You said it was about 3 feet wide. Your standard game trails are, I mean, they're less than half of that.
Also, far less.
The areas, far less. Yeah, exactly.
Some you can barely see, you know.
Right. And that's, it's some of those game paths, it's 1 foot in front of the other, not side by side. But you also said something that really caught my attention, and that is, okay, so the ground or the grass or something was pressed down. You said it could have been deer. Let me ask you this. Since you have eliminated those cedars or the junipers, any more pressed down grass?
Well, actually, I have not eliminated those juniper trees over on that side.
The ones with the circles are still there?
They're still there. They're still there. And you can walk over there and take pictures of the circles. They're still there. And
well, that's what I want you to do, is go over there and take more pictures.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll have to do that. It's they're still there. In fact, I just talked to a company that does clearing, and they actually come. I think I told you about that. They actually come in with this machine because I was like, well, I guess you'll have to come in here and cut all these cedars down. And the guy just looked at me. He said, no, ma'am. He said, our machine will just go right through those cedars and it mulches it up. And he says, all you will have is nothing but cedar mulch out here.
Hey, I got a question, though.
Trees, and they're big cedar trees. So, I mean, they're not little bitty trees.
I've got a question. Since you first found those, now usually repeated activities what keeps game trails, etc., fresh. Have you noticed, have those been kept, like they've been continued being used?
Well, you know what, Will, I have not gone over there and looked at those things myself. I mean, I can do that this week. I can have Jessica and go over there with me. And you know why? Because of my surgeries and stuff like that. I haven't been wandering around out there and that. Anyway, I can do that this next week and then try to get some pictures and stuff for you.
Yeah, I just wondered if there was continued use there.
Well,
Forrest, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
How close is the area where they've been laying down to the junipers?
It's probably a good 75 yards away.
Because I was just wondering, junipers can be used for intestinal problems, urinary tract infections, and worms. So I was just wondering if they might be laying down close to it because they're having health issues of some kind and they're eating it.
Well, that's entirely possible because, those juniper berries, I even use, a lot of people in Texas use juniper berries in cooking. I use them in cooking.
Really?
For flavoring and such. Yeah,
Are they tasty?
Well, yeah. Have you ever had gin before?
There we go.
I don't know that I have. Whether
I'm asking a legitimate question because gin is made from juniper berries.
That's why I said there we go. I was waiting for somebody to bring that up because that's a common flavoring in gin. Is juniper berries.
Yeah.
Well,
juniper berries. That's what they
tea.
used to make gin from.
Okay. Forrest, the other question, Dave almost hit on it, and that is the junipers or the cedars with the circles in them. There's two of them, right? They're kind of a figure eight, or okay, two of them. How far are those from the barn, and how? Excuse me. How far would you estimate that they are from your house?
Okay, from my house, I'm going to say about 30 feet. From my barn is probably a good 100 yards from the house.
Okay.
How big are the junipers?
They're big. I mean, they're probably 20 feet tall, 25 feet tall. They're big junipers.
What about the diameter at the trunk?
Oh, now that I don't know. I'm going to say maybe 10 inches around, maybe more.
That's what it looks like.
Foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just guessing then. I'm not, I'm not sitting at the house, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand. Well, that's interesting, Dave, talking about the medicinal property. So, yeah, very good. Who knows?
Well, I was going to let me say
creatures
this.
know something we don't.
Yeah. Do you remember when I told y'all about the juniper tree that's actually in the dog kennel, and that back? And I think I sent you a picture of that way back when. We went out, and I don't know why I was doing something in front of the mobile home there, and all of a sudden I looked over, and I'm looking in the what used to be Cagney's kennel, and because we were in the process of taking all that stuff, the wire and stuff down, but I was standing in the yard, and I looked back at this tree, the cedar tree, and the cedar tree kind of it leans over to one side, but the top of it was all squashed down. And we actually walked over there, and we were looking at it, and it looked like something had took and bent all the limbs on the top down and kind of made a bed. I mean, it was like all spread out, like it was, like it was a bed, like something was sitting up there or sleeping up there. And I thought, well, now that is just weird, because if you did that, then all you had to do, you had a perfect view of the trailer, everything from all across the front of the trailer. And I just thought, well, that's just weird. Something's been sitting up there. And actually,
I got
the
a
top
picture
part
of that as well.
Yeah,
It broke it down, right? It snapped it over.
Yes, they snapped it over, and actually now that part of the tree is dead. But before, I mean, it was alive there for a long time, but it had bent it over so badly. I mean, you could actually see. I mean, there's no way that it would have broke like that naturally. But I mean, it was like something had literally bent it over and had made it into a bed up there. And that cedar, I mean, if it's thick enough, you can actually sit on that stuff, you know?
I have a picture of it. You sent it, and I didn't remember the purpose behind it. Now I do. So that's very interesting. They could have been watching you the whole time sitting up there, which is kind of creepy.
Well, I think that's exactly what they were doing, which is really creepy.
I have a question. As far as up under the trees, I mean, are they kind of like in the woods, or just like, is this an area where you keep the grass cut or anything? I mean,
no, it's in the woods. It's I've got a big growth of cedar trees between me and this other property that is adjacent to me, and so they run down the fence row, but they have gotten way too developed onto my property, and that's why I had actually talked to this brush company that they just come out and they just shred all that stuff. They have a machine that just shreds all of it. And I mean, some of this cedar's big enough that it could be sold, but try to get somebody out there. People just don't do cedar chopping anymore. You don't have, that's beneath people to be a cedar chopper, So
no, we still have them down here. I mean, there are people down here.
Need to send some of them
they'll take
this
a
way.
6-inch tree, A lot of the older cedars down here. I mean, there's one that's growing on my grandmother's property that's probably about 4 feet in diameter at the bottom. It's a really old tree. It actually looks like it's dying. I mean, it doesn't look healthy. But
well, I actually have several of those on my property because my grandfather, in the front pastures, he used to manicure the cedar trees. And if you manicure them, they will grow that way. And then they make great shade trees for the cows and the horses. So they actually provide better shade than the oak trees do. So, but you have to cut them up way high so that you don't have all those little sucker limbs coming off the bottom,
Yes, ma'am.
So anyway, yeah, it's it's an interesting situation around here. And in fact, I think I told you guys that Jessica's brother was actually working on doing some wiring and stuff on the house, and he figured out what my problem was, and he's going to get I actually have on the front corner of the mobile home, another motion light, but it has never worked. Well, come to find out, my wannabe grandson-in-law and my son-in-law thought they were electricians when they worked on this, putting this motion light up that's never worked. And that was what was causing the electrical problems in my bedroom. So he got Edward today, fixed all that, and he's going to have to come back and rewire this light on the outside, and he thinks that maybe he can get that motion light working. If not, he'll just go. I'll just go get another one and have him install it for me properly this time, and then I will have a motion light on that side of the trailer.
Are you still getting disturbances on the alarms?
You need to remember.
Well, you know what? I hadn't been, and then the other night at 12:20, the alarm went off.
So they're still hanging around.
Well, yeah, I think so. I think that, for a while there, for those first 2 weeks, they were testing that door. And, of course, God only knows how long they were testing it before, y'all got me that alarm. But what was so funny, I think I told you, I know David got a kick out of it when I told him that I said it sounded like there was one morning at like 2. They'd always do it between 11 and 11:30, and then 2 and 2:30. It was a regular routine. And as soon as Jessica left at, after, she'd always leave about 2:45 so she could make it to work by 4. And usually a little after 4 o'clock, I'd get something, and then around 6 o'clock, just as the sun was coming up, and then nothing after that, absolutely nothing. Well, there was one morning at like 2:33 is when they hit. And I got to where I was logging all this, so I've got all the times and everything down. And then we went for like a week and a half and nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. But this 2:33 in the morning, I told Jessica, and she was actually home. She heard the alarm go off, and what I would do is I got to where I would go up there and I would listen, and then I'd flip the alarm off and then reset it. Well, it sounded like I had a freaking cow on the back porch falling down the porch. It was the funniest noise. And you know what? I wasn't going to stick my head out to see, I guess I told Jessica, I said, now we're going to have to put up a game camera. If I'd have thought ahead of time, that's what I would have done, is put one of my game cameras right there. But of course, then they probably wouldn't have showed up at all. But, it wouldn't that have been funny watching one of them fall down the back porch, because I'm sure that alarm scared them. And, or startled them, and it did. It sounded like a freaking cow falling off my back porch.
Did you get that new motion sensor figured out for us?
I have not yet, no. In fact, Edward's going to set up that for us, too. So I think he's going to come back next weekend, and he's going to set that all up for me, too.
Okay.
So, anyway, I mean, I think Bigfoot's probably going to think that they have landed at Fort Knox before it's over with. Oh, it's too funny.
Does anybody else have any theories on why they might be making like circles around the trees? I mean, if they were just picking the berries off of them, they wouldn't do that. They would just pull limbs down and, get them. But why would they make circles like that? I mean, I find that really odd.
Keep other animals from eating them.
Oh, kind of like a natural scent fence or something,
Something like that. That'd be my guess.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. It's just bizarre because, I mean, even the guy that was doing my fence, he said, you got to come look at this. He says, it's like something's been pacing around and around and around underneath these trees. I mean, that's just weird.
You know, I wonder if it's some game maybe the juveniles are doing.
Well,
I
mean,
think
that's
about
always
that.
a possibility, but I've never seen any other primates do that. I mean, humans have maypoles, but
I mean, I don't know what else they'd be doing. You know, if it's them, of course.
well, yeah, but what else could it be? I mean, I don't know. I mean, deer wouldn't do that.
No, and you wouldn't get a pathway that wide.
No.
And the ground is not good for like tracks. It's just kind of loamy. Every cedar tree I've ever seen has always had this dark black loamy soil around it, and it doesn't make for good footprints. It just you know, even when it's wet and sticky, it doesn't make for good footprints.
Well, I've got red sandy loam here. I got good soil on my property, but and I've got some black soil in here mixed in too. But this right there, and Tom, you might be able to send him a copy of that, you know, so he can see. But it's actually a red soil. But when we took those pictures, and you know, I really probably need to go back over there because now I've told y'all we've had so much rain in the last 2 months that they have now declared our drought over with, and we've got all the water stock tanks are filled, and I mean we have got you know, of course Texas is famous for its wildflowers, but we have got wildflowers that, I mean, I had still up until the middle of May, I still had bluebonnets out here. The temperatures had been so cool that those lupines, which are what bluebonnets are, they were still growing on my property. And we've just got, I mean, it's just nothing but you go down the roads and they're just carpeted with all these beautiful flowers. And right now, and I sent some pictures to you, Tom. I didn't send them to you, Will, but Tom's got them all. Jessica and I, we always do a nightly drive when she's off around the barn and everything. You can't even hardly see my barn for these sunflowers out there. Now we have the low cut Maximilian sunflowers, and then I've got regular sunflowers that, you know, the ones that grow up so tall and everything. You couldn't even see my barn for the sunflowers, and then try finding somebody that'll come out there and mow that stuff for you, because I was like, oh my God, I gotta have 100 illegals hanging out there, and God only knows how many Bigfoot are hiding in that stuff, because you couldn't see them if you tried. I mean, well, you saw what it looks like, Tom. It's thick as hops. You can't even see the barn.
Those sunflowers have edible seeds.
Do they have edible seeds, or the edible kind?
Well, the Maximilians aren't, but the big sunflowers, they have edible seeds in them. Yeah, they get big, and
they're
boy,
good.
Howdy, they're good. And then you'll see the dove will start coming in and eating those. They love those sunflowers. They will perch right up there and.
Well, we used to grow them when I was.
Those.
Oh, they're good. They're very good. We grew them when I was a kid on our farm, and then you'd roast them, and oh man, good stuff.
Yeah. Well, they grow here naturally.
There was a farm I used to drive past over in the Mississippi Delta when I was driving my delivery route that they raised sunflowers for the seed, you know, to sell as food. And this farm was. The field looked like it may have been about 2 miles across, and it was about 3 miles along the roadway, and it was huge. And I've never seen anything like that in my life. I'll never forget that, you know.
Yeah, well, they grow here naturally, those big ones like that. So, but yeah, the dove, like I say, the dove love them, and they grow real well around stock tanks and stuff. So that's why a lot of your dove hunters, when dove season comes around, they'll be sitting down by the stock tanks waiting for the dove to fly in to drink and then eat the sunflower seeds that have fallen down.
Now your stock tanks, are they man-made or natural?
Well, the one that's adjacent to my property is natural. But we have a lot of man-made ones where they go in there and they dig it all out, and then they put a liner in there And then, they seal it with some type of product, and then they put a liner down in there. And then after so long, it'll just start holding water all the time. So, but this one happens to be a natural one. It was there when I was a little girl. So it's been there a long time.
Yeah, my grandfather had two natural ones and a man-made one that they made where they actually kind of just used some 6x6s and kind of dammed up where this little stream was and backed it up with dirt. And they just kind of like made about a 20-foot diameter pond, basically, is what we used to call it, the little pond. But yeah, it was a man-made stock tank. But he had two others on his property that were natural, so.
Yeah. Well, I've sent you pictures, you guys pictures of the ones out in East Texas that are on my daughter's property. And they're, of course, they tend to call them ponds out in East Texas. It's funny how the terminology changes. It tends to be more like, that part of Texas tends to lend itself in the vocabulary more to the deep South, but they call them ponds out there. Because my daughter got corrected several times when she'd say stock tanks, and they're like, no, those are ponds. Well, their ponds out there look more like frickin' lakes, I'm telling you, because, as my one son-in-law's got a one that's 10 acres. And I said, that's not a pond, that's a frickin' lake. And the pond that they have on Michelle's property, well, I sent, Tom, remember those pictures I sent you that they're just, and after the rain, she calls it Lake Tenaha. And it's stocked with catfish and bass. So, I mean, that's how big the pond is. Yeah.
Well, that's my favorite stuff.
My little grandson, my little 4-year-old grandson pulled a 4-pound bass out of there.
That's a big bass.
That's a big bass, yeah. And then you wonder why you got Bigfoot prints around her pond.
Well, I understand now.
They're fishing.
They're fishing, yeah. Well, I told you guys that she was finding turtle shells and stuff like that out there. I mean, big turtle shells, because she was like, what's getting the turtles? And I'm like, you really probably don't want to know, honey.
Well, all the tracks that were in Annabeth's place, there were freshwater shells, out there too, where something had been eating.
Yeah.
Now, are these, what kind of turtles are these? Are these snapping turtles?
Oh, we have snapping turtles, yeah, but you get a lot of box turtles and such as that here.
Well, the reason I asked, and when you said that, I got to thinking about this. About 15 years ago, a friend of mine's uncle, he had a pond, and, well, it's like you said, it was a small lake, but he had catfish in it, and he also had a bunch of ducks around. Well, snapping turtles down here, they got to killing off all his ducks. And he asked us if we could get those turtles out of his pond for him, So we said, well, yeah, we started trapping some of the turtles. Now, mind you, I'm probably going to get myself in trouble because this is illegal. Snapping turtles are protected down here. But, yeah, we were catching the turtles out. And after we've done it for about, I don't know, we'd been at it for about a month maybe, just catching as many as we can. We started finding turtles in the traps that we had set that had been eaten, torn apart. And we'd find the shells laying up on the bank. We'd find our trap laying up on the banks. We never could figure out what in the hell was doing it. We just, okay, well, ain't no more turtles in that pond that we can find, so.
Well, we've actually heard that before. We've heard that over in North Carolina and all, through the Midwest and here on the West Coast. So it seems to be a thing. And I guess if you think about it, turtles are probably, I don't know, maybe easy to catch. I don't know.
There's a lot of meat on them. I know that. I mean,
there is.
They're really good too.
Hey, were those traps torn open, or how was the turtle taken out?
Okay, we didn't use like what we call a turtle trap. It's not like you're thinking like a trap. It's like a piece of heavy duty stiff wire with several treble hooks baited on it, usually anchored to something really heavy that can't be pulled off. They would mostly be slung up on the bank, and the turtle shell busted open and all the meat gone. All the intestines. I mean, there wouldn't be anything left but the shell. And some that we found, we could tell that they had been eaten or they had been killed maybe about 6 or 8 hours before, sometime during the night. Because we'd bait these traps in the evening and check them in the morning. And so the traps we set weren't like a basket trap or anything like that. They were just like, yeah.
Hey T, I got a question for you. Are you still doing that? Are you still in the area where you can trap them? And if you can, what would you think about putting the traps back out there far away? Set up a camera. You don't want one that is motion censored in any way, shape, or form. You don't want it to emit infrared light or anything like that. But one that's just always on. Maybe even a GoPro. Well, you have to hook an external battery to it and the biggest SD card you have. Just let it run all night long. It might be interesting. What you might trap those who are stealing the traps.
Well, I'll have to get in touch with that friend of mine and see if his uncle still owns that property, or his family, because his uncle, I know he passed away years ago. But I know his family some of his family still owns that property. I can get with him and find out. But like I said, it's very illegal. I mean, it's serious.
Is it illegal for all turtles? Okay. Is it for all?
No, just snapping turtles. Just
snapping turtle. Okay.
They call it the alligator snapping turtle. Yeah, it's.
So, don't bait those. Just bait the other ones.
Well, that's
if
just
you see what I'm saying.
I mean,
right, I understand.
And these traps kill.
Over who goes for the bait?
Yeah, and these traps kill them too. So there's no way.
Okay.
To catch and release or anything like that. And if you get caught using those kind of traps down here, you're in pretty good trouble with the game warden.
Okay. Well, we don't want that.
T.
Yes.
Do y'all have otters down there?
We do, but not very many. I've actually only seen like 2 or 3 in my lifetime. But they are down here, and they're protected as well.
Otters will kill snapping turtles.
Most of the places that you find them down here, they'll be on the main rivers, like the Chattahoochee River or maybe the Tallapoosa, some of the larger rivers around here. I've never seen one anywhere around like farm ponds and in small creeks. Now,
yeah, they usually like running water.
Back in the 1800s, this place was full of otters, and otters are one of the reasons now that when you legally kill a bobcat during hunting season, you have to get it tagged by a game warden. Or he's basically saying, yeah, this is not an otter hide, it's a bobcat. Because hides are very similar. But
well, you're not killing bobcats, are you?
I do hunt them occasionally, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I mean, we have a limited hunting season. I don't hunt them so much as I hunt coyotes and stuff like that. But yeah, I have hunted bobcats. Especially in areas where they get to be a nuisance, killing farm animals and stuff like that. I used to have people that would say, hey, I got a bobcat that's killing, my chickens and stuff like that. Can you come down here and see if you can find him, catch him, Sure. But I haven't hunted bobcat in several years now. But, it's usually kind of an animal control thing. I don't just wantonly go out and kill animals,
Excuse me. Did we lose Tom?
No, I'm here. I'm just, I'm thinking. So I wonder T, if anybody else you know of, or anybody out there who has seen, and not necessarily where you're doing illegal trapping, because I've heard of situations where people have found turtle shells. It had nothing to do with traps. It just had to do with the fact that the turtles had been snagged by something and torn open and eaten, and you go out there and all you find is a tortoise shell, and it's obvious that somebody has grabbed it, and it wasn't a person that did it. It was wildlife. So I'm just curious if anybody else has seen this or heard of this.
Well, like what Forrest and I were talking about, down there on the Chattahoochee River, there are several dams on that river, and when they've got it low enough, there's a lot of rocks that stick up out of the water, and you can go down there and you can see turtles just all over these rocks, and they're what we call soft shell turtles. But you can go to certain areas that I know, and you can find turtle shells laying up on the bank.
Well,
I've never found any that were fresh killed or anything, but you can find hundreds of them. So it could be otters.
I'll tell you this. It could be. There's another possibility. I was out golfing in the Midwest at a very, very nice, it's a public golf course, and I was trying to get across the water hazard. The water hazard was huge, and I hit the ball. The ball went down. It hit the top of a turtle's back and went on to go into the water. So that turtle didn't do me any good. But I don't think we're talking about that here. That's what's demolishing these turtles.
Well, I have found turtle shells alongside stream banks. I always assumed otters or some animal like that. I've actually seen a mink kill a small turtle. I've actually watched him from a tree stand one day alongside a little creek. I watched a mink kill a turtle that was about the size of a little bit bigger than a coffee cup, and then proceed to eat it right there on the bank, right there in front of me, Okay. But some of the turtles that I've seen, the shells that I've seen down there along the river, they're, foot and a half in diameter, huge turtles, big turtles. Probably the turtle would have weighed 30 or 40 pounds, alive. But I have no idea what's killing those. Yeah, Well,
was that a snapping turtle?
The last snapping turtle that I saw, a friend of mine caught it somehow or another. He didn't say how, but it was still alive. He was keeping him in a pen out behind his house. This thing weighed 60 pounds. And he said, watch this. And he took a broom handle and reached over and poked that damn turtle with it. The turtle bit the broom handle in two. I mean, just bit it and just crunched it. Just like he was just, like it was nothing, So
yeah, like a vice.
Exactly. And, they got a sharp beak anyways, And I actually know an old man who's missing.
Look, they don't look. They are very unique. As far as turtles go. Here's what interests me, and I know you can't go back in time and do this, but next time, if anybody out there happens to stumble across a turtle shell, just laying on the bank, this is something Will would tell you, and that is look at the area around, leading up to it, leading, all around. Look for footprints. Look for evidence. You remember that, Will? Because I had that tree stump that was torn to shreds, and you said, Tom, you need to go back and examine the ground. You remember that?
Oh, yeah. That's... I think a lot of people will see something, and then, they just don't... It doesn't occur to them to look around more. Some people are curious, but a lot of people are just like, wow, that's weird, and then off they go.
Right.
And that goes to not just things like turtles, but any other... strange animal deaths you might find out there. I mean, my friend John, and I didn't know this for many years because John and I didn't talk about it until recently when we did some recording. And he says, well, last time he used that trail between your house and mine, he found a deer up there, and its neck had been twisted around. And that's not something that's a normal animal kill.
No, it isn't. But yeah, no, you're exactly right, because that shredded, and I'm glad I saw it. I was hiking back up to the truck from an area that you and I have, the whole team was there last summer, and there was that shredded stump in a very unique way, 8-foot tall stump. And I was like, it just caught my attention. I took a picture of it. I sent it to you, and I sent it to somebody else who we talked to from time to time. And both of you guys, independently of each other, said, take a look at it. You can see where there's giant fingernail scrapes. And you agreed with me that was not a black bear, and it was not wasn't an elk rubbing the velvet off their antlers.
No, those kind of things are very
clear.
Go
back and check out the ground. Yeah, absolutely. I know that stuff when I see it, but this was like, I have no idea what did this or why. But I went back, and my buddy and I found a series all over the place of 14 and a half inch footprints, 1.5 inches, 2 inches in the duff. And that forest duff is really hard to compact. And the only thing I can say is the ground was littered with little huckleberry bushes. So I suspect that's part of the reason they were there, was getting the huckleberries. Just guessing.
Yeah, it's always a good idea to watch out for, what's being eaten in the areas. If you suspect anything's around.
Me and the guys I hang out with, it depends on if we're in a hurry. If we're walking down a trail just trying to get somewhere and we see something, we may look around for a second, but it's like, oh, well, and we'll walk on. But if we're just bebopping along through the woods and find something, we have, looked around to see what could have done this, what did this, We found an area one time, maybe about a year before I had my encounter, where a coyote had literally been torn to pieces. There was just chunks left of this coyote's body and skeleton, and it happened the night before. There was blood all over the place. And there was an area that was torn up about 20 foot in diameter in the bushes there but we never saw any kind of tracks of anything that we could discern. We found other coyote tracks, we found deer tracks, we found all kinds of things like that, but we never could figure out what tore that coyote up.
Yeah, that's kind of unusual. It makes me think, that state trooper I knew many years ago, Mark Pittenger in Washington. He told me, and this is at Green and Hendon's camp when I first met those guys. He was telling me about, tracking the 3 Sasquatches that were in that area, and he came upon a place that where he found where coyotes had been killed and torn apart and apparently eaten. And he said it was easy to see what happened when he found the spot. They'd apparently lured the coyotes in by making similar sounds that they do, and there was recordings that locals had made of them, of these noises. And they sounded like coyotes, but it was a little off. If you knew what coyotes sounded like, you could tell these weren't coyotes. But the coyote might not know that. And so anyway, he said it looked like they had drawn the coyotes in, then when it was too late, they'd grab them by their hindquarters and smash their heads against alder trees 10 feet off the ground. And he said then they'd been torn apart. It scared him pretty badly.
We found blood on trees that were close to that circle, a good 7 or 8 foot off the ground. We found blood, splashed on it. It was dried blood, but you could tell it was fresh,
I wonder if that was the same kind of thing where they were smashing their heads on the trees to kill them.
Well, I remember it wasn't maybe a month or two after that. There was a story in the local papers around here. A hunter in Carrollton, Georgia, which that's maybe 50 miles from here, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. I'm not sure the exact distance. But there was a man hunting up there. He had captured the pictures, several pictures, clear pictures of a mountain lion. And mountain lions aren't supposed to exist around here. back in the 1800s, they were all over the place, but they haven't been seen in Alabama and Georgia since the early 1900s, I think. But this guy got a very clear picture of a large male mountain lion. So we were thinking, well, cat, that could be it, you know.
Yeah, very true.
But, you know, that was, like I said, this was before my encounter. I always tried to find something that I knew might have been around when I saw strange things.
Oh, sure. What else would you think? You know, you're trying to figure out what normal animal would do something like that.
Yeah.
But here's one thing. I want to interject something as far as mountain lions go. A lot of times, and people have sent us pictures. We heard stories of pictures where you have a deer, maybe 8, 10, 15 feet, you know, up in the crook of a tree. And people were like, oh, well, mountain lion did that. No, a mountain lion absolutely did not do that. They don't have the jaw strength, the strength of their jaw muscles. It's out of their behavior. If a mountain lion gets a prey, they'll bury it and cover it with leaves and branches and stuff, but don't haul it up a tree.
And so we have found things like that.
See something in a tree, yeah. So if you see something in a tree, it was not a mountain lion that did it.
And you know, I bought an eyeball with a mountain lion one time back when I was in the Army. This friend and I, he was from Colorado. We took our leave together, and he came down here and spent 2 weeks, and then we flew out to Colorado and spent 2 weeks. And he had taken me hiking out there up some trail that he loved, some place he loved to go to. And it was in the spring of the year, and I just remember this little stream, probably about 6 foot wide, coming down off the top of that mountain, and the water was so cold, if you stuck your hand in it, it would actually hurt your knuckles, you know. And I got down on my hands and knees and was drinking out of that stream. And across the stream on the opposite side, there was a big rock right there. Well, when I raised up from drinking, I looked up, and there's a mountain lion sitting on that rock, hunched down looking at me. My buddy saw this about the same time I looked up, and he started running up behind me, shooting a pistol in there, and he scared the mountain lion off. But that mountain lion was looking at me thinking, I got you now, you know, because I couldn't move. I was just, I was like, what do I do now?
You didn't hear and you probably didn't hear a thing, right? I mean, they were quiet,
never heard anything. And I've actually had that with bobcat hunting down here when I'm hunting coyotes and stuff, you know. They'll get curious and they'll come to the sounds, you know. And if you don't have a coyote respond or start coming towards you within 15, 20 minutes, you know, it's about time to give it up and move to another location, you know, start calling. Well, I had worked the night before and had went out that morning. Me and a friend of mine were coyote hunting, and I made the call noises for about 15, 20 minutes. We didn't hear anything. It was comfortable, you know. I was just sitting there just kind of relaxing, and I said, well, might as well move. So when I stood up out of my little camouflage hoots that I used to carry with me, there was a bobcat sitting 10 feet in front of me that I never saw him. I don't know where he came from. It was just a bunch of tall grass, but when I stood up, the bobcat, the look on his face probably was similar to the look on mine, like, what the hell, you know? And
well, I got to tell you, they are quiet.
Yeah, and very, very sneaky. I mean, you know, they will move up onto stealthy. You. I have no idea how that bobcat got to where he was without me seeing him move, because it was just big, tall sagebrush grass, you know, around.
Sure.
And there he was.
No, I have a similar story. I was looking at property on a river here in Oregon. It's a coastal river. It's one of the main, you know, it dumps into the ocean. And so me and a buddy of mine were up there checking it out. And the area it was a beautiful day. We're looking at all the boats in the river. I was like, man, I need to buy this property and put a dock out here and a boat. You know, that's always foremost in my mind. But we're standing next to 2 old growth maple trees. And so these things had a diameter of about easily 4.5 foot. They were huge trees. And there's a few little ferns around. We're standing there looking at it. And the whole time, didn't think anything of it. And I went back, walked back down the road, say 60 feet to my car, turned around and looked. And here's this bobcat just sauntered across the road, just very relaxed. He had been behind those trees the whole time. And this is a huge bobcat, giant cat. Not quite, but almost the size of a like a Irish setter. And so I ran over there real quick. I wanted to get a better look at him, but he was gone. He disappeared into there was a swamp there, and he disappeared. But I had no idea. And I'm sure he was watching us the whole time. But they're interesting animals.
I have no doubt that he was. They're very interested and they're very curious. One of the ways to hunt them around here that we use, you can't use like a what they call a dummy. You can't use like a fake rabbit or anything like that. But what you can do is decoy. Yeah, you can't use a decoy. But what you can do is hang a feather on a string, a piece of thread, just hanging on a tree close to you, so it just kind of swirls in the breeze, And they will actually come up to that and look at it.
Well, we don't hunt them, but we have 2 house cats, and we have a feather, 2 or 3 feathers on a string on a stick, and you swirl it around, and those cats go nuts. Yeah, we do that when they're being a little too energetic at night. We need to get some sleep. We got to wear them out.
Yeah,
so we spin that around for a bit.
I do the same thing with my cats, and one of them loves it. The other one, she's kind of like, she gets tired quick, and that's it. But the young one, she'll chase it for hours.
Oh yeah, they're very, very athletic, very acrobatic. That thing will leap 3.5 feet in the air trying to get that thing.
Guys, I hate to say it, but we're just about out of time. Well,
man, goes by quick.
It goes by quick. Well, thanks everybody for joining us around the fire, and stop by next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creek Devil. If you or anyone you know has had an encounter with these creatures, please contact us at williamjevning@yahoo.com. That's William, Jevning @yahoo.com. All communication is confidential. Join us for another program next week. And until then, keep your eyes open out there.